Hey.
Thank you very much, Susan. And within um, the context of my training at the Novato Institute and my experience and my ongoing development with you, Susan, and other members of the Novato Institute, I'm able to make a few additions and mo modifications to Thomas Hanna's basic lesson. And in time, as we were talking about earlier, time is always a way for progress and change. And in lesson 3, in Thomas Hanna's basic.
Whoops. I'm sorry. Wait. I messed up. Isaiah, can you help me? Okay. Wait. Okay. Speak for a moment, Karen. No, you can't hear it. I don't know what I did. Isaiah, do you need to come up here? Oh,
So
there
I
you go.
don't,
Thank
is
you.
that okay?
That's okay.
Okay. Um, so thank you again, Susan. And lesson 3 in Thomas Hanna's basic somatic movements can be quite pivotal in the establishment and development of your own movement practice. The experience of shortening one side of you in relation to lengthening the other can be an interesting blank for many of us. Give yourself time to practice the movements. You will be guided through by me, Karen Meyer, in this lesson before progressing on to lesson 4. And by going into lesson 3, you know you have become familiar already with the movements of lesson 1 and lesson 2. Lesson 3 accentuates the learning you have already gained from practicing the backwards movement patterns in lesson 1 and the forwards movement patterns in lesson 2. Now you will be focusing more on side bending or lateral flexions, which are also excuse me, which are also intertwined with rotational patterns. And this is what you will be exploring in this session. These specific hanasomatic movements reflect trauma responses, a protective response perhaps to injury, surgeries, car accidents, in some cases from many years ago. Take your time to rehearse the movement patterns of lesson 1, lesson 2, and lesson 3 in their sequence, and you will notice change. Their effects are cumulative. With your excuse me. With your perseverance and commitment, and by practicing your movements in your own quiet time, with awareness, going slowly enough to self-observe, you will maintain change, and new possibilities will emerge in how you move, think, act, and feel. And already you are gaining skill in how to make yourself comfortable for going into these movements. And in today's session, you will be beginning walking and standing. And then you are going to be coming to sitting down. So you will need a comfortably high chair or stool that gives you good support for the first part of the session. And then you're going to be coming to lying down on your back. And when you come to lying down on your back to start with, you will need about 2 or 2.5 centimeters more of your usual support that you have underneath your head. And then after lying on your back, you're going to be coming to lying on your side. Now, this is the first time we've come to lying on our side, unless in previous lessons it's been more comfortable for you to do the movements. So if you haven't done movements on your side, then it's nice to have extra layers of blankets to have handy for you to fold underneath for under your head for when you're lying on your side.
Karen,
So
can I interrupt for a moment? We don't use centimeters. So is this you need higher pillows so when you're lying on your side, you're filling up this space so your head doesn't droop down? Is that what you're talking about?
it's yes, it's about an inch or
About it?
slightly less. So when you come to lying on your side, the important thing is that your head and your shoulders and your pelvis, so that the entire length of your spine feels as though it's in line. And depending on how you are today, you might need slightly more or slightly less support for underneath your head. So I usually have a series of blankets, or as you say, Susan, pillows
Yeah.
for you to have at hand so that you can add them or take them away as and when. So I'll spend a few moments gathering your materials that you need, and a stool is nice to have for you to sit on.
A stool, a lot of people won't have a stool.
A
So
stool or a chair.
and
It's
when you say
if you've got a chair that doesn't have arms, that's always very nice if you want to release your arms by your side. Because sometimes chairs with arms can be a little bit restricting for where you want to place your arms. And if you want to bend your elbows, for example, if you're laying your hands on your lap. And it's important that your support that you're sitting on is comfortably high for you. And also it's
I don't
nice.
know what you mean by comfortably high. I'm a really short person. I don't want to be too in a chair that's too high.
So sometimes chairs are quite high, sometimes they're quite low, and it depends on your height
So
as to whether,
you want your hips bent at a very comfortable place so that when you're sitting, it's like your knees aren't coming up higher than your hips. You want them the same or maybe even a little lower, something like that.
yes, I mean, I can
It's
bring
okay. I think
hopefully
that's
my
enough.
camera.
I think
Oh,
people understand it. I just didn't
okay.
understand when you said comfortably high what you were referring to in terms of posture. But now you've
Yes,
explained it.
it's so that exactly as you've said, Susan, it's so that you're not bending your knees too much. And it's also so that the undersides of your feet are making contact with the ground
Good.
to
Thank you.
sit on. Okay, so let's begin walking. Go ahead into walking. And as you are walking, notice whether you have a different amount of time on each foot. Does one leg support you for longer than the other? Does your stride seem to be shorter with one leg than the other? How are your arms? Are they swinging equally from your shoulders? Perhaps one shoulder is a little bit higher and the other one lower. Does your hand on one side feel it is heavier or hanging lower than the other hand? And as you are walking, where are you looking on your horizon with your eyes? Is your head tilting more to one of your sides? Gradually slow your walking down and come to standing. And as you are standing, you may like to trace your midline from the top of the crown of your head down your spine, each vertebra at a time to your tailbone, and from your tailbone to the ground. Does one leg and foot and hip feel as though it's bearing more weight as you are standing? Where are each of your arms in relation to your sides? Does one arm perhaps hang slightly forward from your pelvis? Or possibly one arm is more behind you? Begin by very slowly and gently transferring a little bit more weight in the direction of the back of your heels, and you are familiarizing yourself more with that forward pattern of movement in your spine. And very slowly, you're shifting your weight in the direction of your toes and exploring that backward pattern of movement. And then slowly come back to where you feel upright and balanced. Now, begin very slowly and very gently, and you may like to have some support next to you if you need it. Very slowly lean over to your right ever so slightly. You're shifting your weight, and you may feel how the outside edge of your right foot and the inside edge of your left foot are bearing a little bit more weight, and transfer your weight over into one leg as if you're standing on one leg, allowing your left leg and knee to soften slightly. And feel what's happening in the rest of you as you're making this movement. and slowly shifting your weight. You're transferring your weight through your feet back up to center where you feel upright, and pause there for a moment. And start very slowly leaning over to your left. You may be feeling a slight shift in your weight on the underside of your feet. You're softening your right leg and you're standing on your left foot, your left leg, and into your left hip more. And notice where you're looking on your horizon as you're doing this, and very slowly bring yourself back up to center, to upright, where you feel balanced, and pause, and then go into that movement again, standing more in your right leg. You're only going as far as is comfortable for you in this, and you're feeling whether there perhaps is any differences as you come to stand more in your right foot and leg and hip. Perhaps you don't want to stand as much in that leg, and you're only going as far and for long as is comfortable for you. And then slowly bring yourself back to upright, pause, and again stand on your left leg. You're softening in your right leg as you do this, and feel what's happening in your head and your neck and in your left hip and your left waist as you're doing this, and where you are looking on your horizon. And go into those movements once or twice more to each side, very slowly and in your own time. And you may be noticing perhaps how the leg that you're standing on, perhaps you feel shorter in your waist on that side. And perhaps as you then shift your weight back to upright and to center, and then over to standing more in your other leg, you may actually notice that it's easier for you perhaps to stand on your other leg relatively. And then very slowly come back to upright, to center. And has anything changed? And go back into walking. Slowly taking a step forward. And has anything changed at all? Is what was prominent to you, has that changed slightly? And then slowly bring yourself back to standing. And bring yourself to sitting. And when you come to sitting, you are feeling the undersides of both of your feet in contact with the floor. And you're sitting on a firm enough surface for you to be able to feel your sitting bones, and so that your knees aren't actually bent too much, so that your knees are lower than your hips. And give yourself a few moments to go into those movements of the forwards movement pattern in your spine by gently transferring your weight in your sitting bones more behind you. You're curling in possibly a little bit as you're doing this, and you may like to have your hands comfortably with your palms down, possibly if that's comfortable, on your lap as you're doing this. And then slowly transfer your weight in your sitting bones so that you're feeling your weight more ahead of you in your sitting bones. And when you do this, you may like to change how you're placing your arms. It's whatever's comfortable for you. And you're feeling your weight more in your front of your sitting bones, and you are revisiting that lovely backward pattern of movement in your spine. And then bring yourself back to where you feel most balance and upright as you are sitting. Very slowly, lean over to one side. Very, very slowly. You may like to begin with leaning over to your right side. You're only going a very small way. And then bring yourself back to upright, to center, and pause. And lean over the other way. So you're now leaning over to your left, ever so slowly. It's a very small movement. And then bring yourself back to center and pause for a moment. You have been very slightly side bending to one side and the other. And was it easier for you to move to one side relative to the other? And this time, slowly draw your right hip. It's a very, very small movement. Draw your right hip into your waist and into your ribs and in the direction of your right armpit, and begin to do less. And as you are doing less, you will be finding yourself returning back down so that you are coming back to center. And what are you doing to make that happen? And this time, when you go into that movement, very slowly and gently rock your pelvis ever so slightly so that you feel a little bit more on the left side of your sitting bones, and then go into that movement again. Bring your right hip, you're hiking your right hip into your waist and into your ribs ever so slightly, and then slowly reverse out of that movement. And where else, which other parts of you are involved in that movement? And come back to center. And go into that movement again, one more time. And you're keeping yourself upright as you do this. You're feeling how you're coming into your side bend. On your right side, you are shortening on your right side and then slowly release out of that movement and rest. Now bring your right armpit. You're drawing your armpit down into your ribs and into your waist in the direction of your right hip. And you may be feeling that the right side of your shoulder girdle is coming down, and you're using your intercostal muscles between your ribs to bring your ribs on your right side closer together. And you may be feeling your ribs on your left side opening up a little bit. And then slowly you're reversing out of that movement, bringing yourself upright. And notice where you are looking on your horizon and where you're feeling your weight in your sitting bones and on the undersides of your feet. And pause there. Start drawing your right hip into your waist a little bit, and then begin drawing your right armpit down into your ribs, and feel where your head and your neck and your right shoulder would like to go. You're contracting in your right side and you're lengthening in your left side, and then very slowly release out of that movement. The coming out of the movement is the most important part. And very slowly, you're using your control to bring yourself back to center. And this next time you go into that movement, you may like to, as you are contracting on your right side and opening on your left side, in particular your ribs, you may like to direct your breath into your left ribs. So begin drawing your right hip up into your waist and in the direction of your right armpit. And at the same time, draw your right armpit very gently into your ribs, and you're feeling your armpit and your hip on your right side, and possibly the right side of your shoulder girdle moving in the direction of each other. You may be feeling this in your head and neck, and you may like to direct your breath into your left ribs and expand them a little bit more. This helps the contraction on your right side, and then slowly, with infinite slowness, reverse out of that movement, bringing yourself back to upright and to center using your control. And where are you looking on your horizon? Where are you feeling your weight in your feet and in your sitting bones? And you may like to make a few adjustments in how you're sitting. You may like to add a folded blanket perhaps to the surface that you are sitting on, or you may like to take a blanket away if you feel that that might be more comfortable for you. Bring your attention now to the left side of your pelvis and your left hip. And start drawing your left hip into your waist and into your ribs on your left side in the direction of your left armpit. And you may be noticing already as you are side bending to your left, you may be feeling how your weight is transferring over to the right side in your sitting bones. And then very slowly come out of that movement, bringing yourself back slowly and gradually, and using your control to rest. And pause. This time, draw your left armpit into your ribs very gently. And you may like to alter the positioning in your arm to try a different position. And very gently, you're drawing your armpit into your waist, and you're using your intercostal muscles between your ribs. And you may feel how the ribs on your right side are opening up slightly, and then slowly release out of that movement, feeling how you are returning back to upright. And does it feel different on this side relative to your other side? Is it perhaps a little bit more difficult to organize than the other, or perhaps it might be easier? And bring those two movements together. And you may like to, as you are side bending to your left this time, you're opening in particular into your right side, and you may like to direct your breath into your right ribs as you are going into the movement. And start drawing your left hip into your left waist, and then draw your left armpit down into your ribs and your left shoulder and your left hip are moving in the direction of each other. Where does your head want to go? And you may like to take a lovely breath in to your right ribs, and then slowly. You are in charge of this movement as you very slowly release back to rest. And pause, feeling whether anything has changed in how you are sitting and where you are bearing your weight in your feet and in your sitting bones. You have been shortening in one side of you, whilst at the same time lengthening in your other side. And come back to standing. And as you are standing, feel where your weight is in your feet, your uprightness, your balance. And you may like to go walking a little bit to feel the movement in your arms your shoulders and your head and neck. And whether perhaps there's any tension that you're feeling in one side of the back of your pelvis, possibly relative to the other, and whether or not that has changed in any way. And while you are walking, motor plan, you're going to bring this awareness with you from sitting upright in relation to gravity, with you as you come to lying down horizontally. And we're going to go into those same movements in a slightly different way. And as you come to lying down, you may like to support yourself as you come to lying down on your back. And when you find your comfortable position on your back, you may like to add a little bit of extra support underneath the back of your head so that your neck is free to move a little bit more than usual. About an inch or less of support extra to your usual support that you have as you're lying on your back. And as with previous lessons, if it's more comfortable for you to rest your knees over a bolster as you're lying on your back, then that's a lovely practice. As you are lying down now on your back, let's begin with some very small, subtle movements in your head and neck. And very slowly and gently, it's as if you are nodding, and it's as if you are nodding, as if you are going to look up, and you are possibly bringing your chin ever so slightly further away from your collarbone and your breastbone area. And you're only going a very small way until you feel a little bit of resistance on the back of your head with the support that's underneath your head. And it won't be very far at all. And from there, very slowly, release out of that. You're feeling this movement on the back of your head. And pause for a moment. And when you are ready, very slowly nod. It's as if you are nodding your head, looking down. And your chin is moving in the direction more of your breastbone. And only go as far as you begin to feel a little bit of resistance on the back of your head with your support. And then very slowly release out of that. And come back to where you feel you're resting and comfortable. You're now going to go into that tilting in your head, which is where you're going to bring your right ear to begin with in the direction of your right shoulder. It's a very, very subtle, it's a very slow and small arc that you are creating. And you're tracing that arc from your right ear down in the direction of your right shoulder. And you're only going as far as where you begin to feel that resistance of the back of your head at that point where where that resistance says to you, that's far enough. And then from that point, very slowly bring yourself back to center and pause. And you may like to go into that once more. And when you do that, you're using the learning that you have gained from the first time you made this movement to go into it and to, more importantly, come out of the movement in a more refined way. And very gently, it's an arcing movement. You're tilting your head so that your right shoulder is moving in the direction of your right ear is moving in the direction of your right shoulder. And then you might want to make the movement smaller this time and very slowly come back to rest, where you feel your weight on the back of your head, the left side and the right side, perhaps a little bit more equally. And go into that movement the other way. You're arcing from your left ear down in the direction of your left shoulder. And you're only going as far as where the resistance is encouraging you to stop. And it's a very small movement, and slowly come back up to center. And go into that movement one more time with more curiosity as you go into the movement, and importantly, as you come out of that movement. And pause where you feel comfortable and balanced on the back of your head. And you may like to briefly explore a turning movement in your head and your neck. And this is a movement that's a rotational movement, and it is usually accompanying the lateral flexion, which you have just made, which is the tilting movement. So tilting and turning, although you're exploring this in the upper part of your spine, your head and your neck area, these are principal movements that you're going to be integrating all the way down your spine and in the whole of your movement patterns. So begin by very gently turning your head to your right. Your nose is moving out and away from where your midline is. And again, you're only going as far as the resistance on the surface that your head is resting on and is supported by is letting you know that's far enough. And then very slowly come out of that movement and come back to center and go into that movement the other way. You're turning to your left and your nose is moving out away from your midline as you are turning. You are feeling how you're only making a very small movement, and as far as the resistance that you begin to feel says to you, okay, slowly return and reverse out of that movement back to center. And rest. Bring your attention to your left side of your pelvis and your left hip, and very gently and slowly hike your left hip. You're drawing it in the direction of your waist and your ribs and your armpit. You're only going a small way and then slowly come out of that movement. And pause for a moment. And now go into drawing your right hip into your right waist and into your ribs. Possibly you may be feeling this. And then very slowly come out of that movement and pause. And this time, as you draw your left hip into your left waist, very gently draw your left armpit into your ribs. You are bringing your left hip and your left armpit towards each other. You may be feeling that contraction in your left waist, and then very slowly reverse out of that movement and pause where you feel balanced as you are lying on your back. And bring this time, you're shortening in your right side, you're hiking up your right hip into your waist, and at the same time drawing your armpit into your ribs, and feel how your right hip and your right armpit and your right ribs are moving towards each other. You're shortening on that side and lengthening in your left side, and then very slowly release out of that back to where you feel balanced on your left side and on your right side of your midline, which is running through you from the top of your head down your spine, and vertebra and by vertebra down to your pubic bone, to your and through to your tailbone, and around and through you, your midline. And as another part to this, as you are shortening on your left side, your left hip and your left armpit are moving in the direction of each other. At the same time, leading with your right heel, lengthen your right heel along the floor, and you're keeping your right heel in contact with the floor, and you're lengthening on your right side and you're shortening on your left side. And you may like to take a lovely breath into your ribs on your right side, and then very slowly come out of that movement, very slowly, to rest. And go into that movement the other way. Draw your right hip and your right armpit towards each other, and at the same time you're lengthening your left leg away from you. Your heel is traveling along the floor away from you, and you're accentuating that length on your left side. You might like to direct your breath into your left ribs as you are shortening on your right side, and then very slowly, with infinite slowness, come out of that movement and pause and rest. And now alternate the movement. And you can start with your left side or your right side. You may like to start with the side that feels easier for you. And somatically, that may mean that that is your tighter side. And if your muscles, it's your muscles in your waist and around your waist on your left side, if they are short on that side, then you might be leaning over more on that side. And so you are curling in on your left side, you are shortening on your left side and bringing your hip and your armpit in the direction of each other while you're lengthening your right leg along the floor. And then you're reversing that movement, lengthening, leading with your heel, your left leg away from you along the floor. And you are lengthening in your left side as you are shortening, bringing your armpit and your hip in the direction of each other. And do that once or twice more, and you're feeling that beautiful undulatory movement. As you're shortening on one side, you are correspondingly lengthening in the other side. And go slowly and make the movements smaller. And then bring yourself in your own time back to center. And pause and rest. Simply lie there and enjoy the feeling of length coming into you from the control and the awareness you are gaining in the very center of your trunk and out towards your periphery. Trace your awareness around the perimeter of the center of your trunk. You're creating your own opportunity to notice subtle changes in your breathing, posture, and movement, and how to make the least possible effort. And let's bring that awareness as you come to lying over on your side. And you may like to begin lying on your left side. And when you are going into this in your own practice, you can choose which side is perhaps your tighter side. And for today, we will begin on your left side. And as you roll over onto your left side, your legs are initially long and you're supporting your head perhaps a little bit more so that you have perhaps an extra folded blanket underneath the side of your head, and so that you can be comfortable in how your head is in line with the rest of your spine, how your shoulder on the floor side is making contact with the floor. You might like to bring your arm that's closer to the floor out in front of you and trace along your lateral line to your pelvis and your leg down to where your foot and your little toe is on, that's making contact with the floor. And you may like to feel that before you bring your knees, both of your knees up to 90 degrees from your trunk, and you can bring your knees up comfortably far for you. It doesn't have to be 90 degrees. And as you're going through these movements on your side, you may like to adjust the positioning of where your knees are in relation to your trunk, and have your feet so that they are underneath your knees. And as you're lying on your side, you are feeling your floor side, which is closer to the floor, that's your bottom side, and your front is in front of you, your back is behind you, and your top side is the side that's closer to the ceiling. And you may like to find a comfortable position for your top arm. You can try different positions. You possibly lengthen your top arm along your side, and that might be comfortable for you, or you may prefer to bend your top arm at the elbow with your elbow coming a bit more behind you. Your forearm is resting on your side waist with your top hand draped comfortably in front of you. That might be a comfortable position for you. And there's another position that you might like to try during these movements on your side, and that is to bend your arm at your elbow again, and lay your elbow on your waist area and bring your hand of your top arm so that your palm is facing into your chest where your ribs are and where your shoulder is. That's another comfortable position as well. So for the first part of these movements, you may like to have your arm long, resting along your waist, and bring your shoulder a little bit turning and rounding in front of you a little bit. It's a very small movement, and you're not going very far at all. And then from there, slowly release out of that. You're unrolling your shoulder, and very gently and going very carefully, roll your shoulder out a little bit behind you. And you may feel how your top shoulder blade might be sliding along your ribs, your top ribs. And do that once more, very slowly rolling your arm in front of you slightly, if that's comfortable or not. You're exploring what is comfortable for you, for your range of motion. And you may like to just imagine this movement. And then bring your arm back to where it feels comfortably rested in whatever position you choose. And now bring your attention to your top side of your pelvis, your top hip bone. And your knees are together in front of you, out at approximately 90 degrees, with your feet, both of them together underneath your knees, so that you can just see your toes. And in this position, you may like to also have a little hand towel as well to put between your knees and between your ankles if at any time this gets uncomfortable. And very slowly, you're keeping your knees together and you're not going very far at all. You're bringing the top side of your pelvis ever so slightly in front of you. And your knees are together, and you may feel how your knee, your top knee, is also moving slightly ahead of your knee that's closer to the floor. And then slowly bring your right hip behind you a little bit, all the while your shoulder, your top shoulder, is quiet. with this movement and your arm. And just do that once more. Slowly bring your hip ahead of you and then slightly behind you, and your knee is following on with this movement. And as you're bringing your hip behind you, slowly roll your shoulder forward ever so slightly. And then as you bring your hip slightly ahead of you, you're bringing your shoulder, rolling it behind you. And just do that once or twice. And it's a lovely way for you to feel how you are making contact with your ribs and with your pelvis as you're lying on your side. And slowly come to rest. And bring your attention to your top foot and keeping your knees together very slowly and gently. Lift your foot in the direction of the ceiling a little bit, just slightly. And you may like to place your hand in your side waist and feel how your oblique muscles are contracting. You're lifting your foot, and that movement is coming from your waist area. And you may like to feel that contraction and then feel the release as you slowly bring your foot back down to rest. And you may like to accentuate that movement a little bit more by bringing the toes of your top foot in the direction of your knees, and the underside of your foot is moving more in the direction of the ceiling. You're actually everting your foot as you keep your knees together and lift your top foot again. And you might feel that contraction in your waist area and possibly into your groin area and around the side of your waist a little bit more clearly. And then very slowly, as your foot with infinite slowness comes back down, you are releasing the contraction of those muscles. And if these muscles are tight, they will lean you over on that side, and you are learning to release them. And with your arm, your top arm, in a comfortable position, you may like to try with your arm long along your side, or with your elbow bent and placing your palm over your top ribs at the front where your shoulder is, and very slowly draw your top armpit in the direction of your ribs. Very slowly and gently, you're contracting those intercostal muscles between your ribs, and you may feel your ribs on your floor side opening and spreading out a little bit. And then very slowly, with infinite slowness, release out of that movement and rest. And you are coordinating that movement so that your foot is coming back down at the same time as your arm is coming back to rest. And go into that movement once more. You may or you may not like to evert your foot. And at the same time, you are keeping your knees together. You're lifting your right foot. And as you are lifting your right foot, your top hip bone is moving in the direction of your ribs and your armpit. And at the same time, you're drawing your ribs in the direction of your hip. You are contracting on your top side, and you are lengthening on your left side, which is your floor side. And then very slowly come out of that movement. And as you are coming out of that movement, you may have become aware of whether you're actually rolling in or perhaps you might be rotating back behind you a little bit as you are making this movement. And very slowly roll over onto your back. And you're lengthening both of your legs at the same time as you roll over onto your back. And give yourself a few moments to feel how you are inflating and condensing in your lungs, and how you are broadening and narrowing in your ribs. These movements of side bending are lovely movements for your breathing and a lovely way to soothe your breathing. And in your own time, roll over onto your other side. So you were lying on your left side with your right side towards the ceiling. You're now rolling onto your right side with your left side more in the direction of the ceiling. And as you're coming over onto your other side, you're feeling your lateral line on the other side. And you may be, your legs are long to begin with, or if that's not comfortable for you, you may like to bring your knees up to 90 degrees to your trunk with your feet under your knees so that you can see your toes. And feel your lateral line on this other side. R is the side of your head, your ribs, your pelvis, and how your feet, your bottom foot is making contact, the side of your bottom foot is making contact with the floor, and how you're placing your feet is that different on this side. And go into that movement to shorten your top side by bringing you're keeping your knees together and you're drawing your top side pelvis in the direction of your armpit, and you're lifting your top foot at the same time, and your top arm is in your chosen comfortable position as you do that. And then slowly begin releasing and feel how your oblique muscles are releasing as you come out of that movement, and rest. And you're feeling your internal sensations from that movement on this side, and you're going very gently, you're going very carefully to begin with. And now bring your armpit in the direction of your hip on your top side. You're drawing your armpit into your ribs, and your ribs are coming together, and you may feel how your ribs on your floor side are opening up. And does it feel different on this side compared to your other side? And then slowly release out of that movement and rest. And you may need to make some minor adjustments when you're doing the movements on this side. And bring those two movements together. You're going to be lifting your right foot, and you may or you may not like to evert your right foot. Your knees are together and you are drawing your top hip into your waist and in the direction of your armpit. And then you're going to start drawing your top armpit into your ribs so that your armpit and your hip on your top side are shortening. You're contracting in that side, And you may like to take a lovely breath in to your left side ribs and feel how that assists you in the contraction of your right side, your top side, and then very slowly, as you are releasing out of that movement, are you aware possibly of whether you have been coming forwards, rolling in on yourself, or perhaps rotating around behind you a little bit as you've been making that movement? And then slowly come back down, resting your foot at the same time as you are releasing in your armpit. And you may have actually been feeling this movement in the side of your neck, and you may have felt that your head has wanted to lift with these movements. And bring your top arm, your hand, in the direction of your knees a little bit, so that you're coming forwards a little bit. And then as you lengthen both legs, roll over onto your back once more. And in coming to rest and resting in comfort, you are inviting a process of active release and integration, which protect the healthy tonicity and vitality natural to the human organism. As you are lying there, feel your balance and your weight either side of your midline, and bring this awareness with you as you slowly roll onto your side and bring yourself back upright, taking your time. Give yourself a few moments lying on your side, and you may like to use a support as you come back to standing. Take your time and come back to standing. And as you come back upright, feel your uprightness, your balance. And you may like to very slowly go into standing more on one leg. And that might be the leg that you previously felt was perhaps bearing a little bit more weight. And has this change, you're softening in your opposite leg and feeling your weight more in that foot, leg, and hip that you're standing on. And then slowly shift your weight. You're coming back up to upright, and then slowly you're shifting your weight so that you're standing on your other leg. And feel what's happening in your shoulders, your head, your neck, in your waist, and in your hip. And with your weight on that leg, bring your attention to your pelvis on your opposite side, leading with your pelvis. Take a step forwards. And you now have you're standing on your front leg. And take another step, leading with the opposite side of your pelvis. Take another step and continue walking, feeling the movement in your ribs and in your pelvis as you're walking. You may have increased your awareness of how your ribs are as you are walking, as well as in your shoulders and in your pelvis and where you are feeling your weight and where you're looking on your horizon as you're walking. And with this awareness, walk into the rest of your day. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You are welcome to stay with us for after class discussion. You might want to take a little bit more time to walk around while I'm talking. That's fine. Karen, that was lovely. Thank you very, very much. This is going to I'm now officially ending the class.